everyone, this is Sias. Today I'm going to be doing a coding tutorial on how to make plugins for the Terminal e-ink device. For those of you who don't know and somehow found this video anyways, the Terminal is this little device here that's got like a 6-inch e-ink display, and it can hang on your wall or sit on your desk, and it can rotate through different screens to show you different bits of data. Like on mine, it shows my Google Calendar, the weather, a bunch of other stuff. So today, if you have one of these, you can start developing plugins for it. If I go here, you can see all the different plugins you can get and whatnot. All sorts of different plugins. And so today we're going to be going, well, how do I make one of these if I want to show data that people haven't made yet? So to go over some background, I've made 2 terminal plugins already. You can find them on this plugin page. I've made the Anime of the Day plugin, and I've also made the Marvel Comic Tracker. Both of these GitHubs will be linked in the description below if you want to check out the code for yourself, or if you want to use it for yourself, because you can in fact just clone this and run this on your own server if you are bringing your own server. So first things first, all I did was I just created a new folder. I called it Terminal Plugin Example, and we're going to create some folders. So really, we're going to need 2 folders. We're going to want our server folder. This is going to hold any of our server code. For this tutorial, we're going to be using Node JS with Express.js to make our API, but you could do it with any other piece of software that just has an API, right? So you could do C# or Java or whatever you want. And then we're going to need a views folder. So for the views, this is going to hold all of our HTML code that will produce this display here, what the user will actually see and format our data properly. But we'll get to that in a later section. So to start off, I'm just going to open up a terminal, PowerShell, whatever, and cd into our folder, our terminal plugin example. And then I'm going to cd into the server folder. I'm just going to run npm init. So this is going to start up our node project. If you're doing something else, obviously, do the setup code there. But for the rest of the example, we are just going to use Node.js. We are going to name this package terminal plugin example 1.0, and all the defaults should be fine after that. Yada, yada, yada. ELS, and there we got our package.json. While we're here, just because we're going to need it, why don't we go ahead and install Express. Okay. Back to our server folder. We can get a new file. Index.js. And actually, let's open up this whole project in VS Code. Okay, so here we are in VS Code, our new index.js. And so let's just get some of the Express stuff out of the way. Okay, so for this first part of the tutorial here, we're going to be making my Anime of the Day plugin. So to start off with that, we are getting all of our data from AniList. There's a huge repository of anime and manga that users use to keep track of what they've watched. But they also have a publicly available API that's free to use. So if we go into that, we'll see that they use a GraphQL system to query their database. And so I've already gone through and made out all of this GraphQL stuff. So all you need to know is that it takes 5 variables and then runs this little query, and this is our results. You can see it shows Cowboy Bebop for our anime results, and then there's a few other ones here. And what we're going to do is we're just going to randomly select in this whole list, and that'll be our Anime of the Day. And we will change this list by changing these variables, particularly the season year and season at random. So first things first, we need our query. I've already got our query copied down, so I am going to just stick this in here and get some base variables going. That we can overwrite later with our randomness. We're going to want a variable to store. We'll set it to null. That way we can check that later. Because it's a day, we're going to want to keep track of, hey, when was the last time that we updated ourselves. So we're going to make that a new date. And then one thing that we have to keep in mind is a part of the agreement with AnyList for use of their API is that they do limit how many tries you get. I believe you can only do 30 at a time, and then it'll start timing you out. So we want to make sure that we don't go above that. Otherwise, our app might get blacklisted or just stop working. And then we are going to want our list of seasons that we can go through. We also can't forget our got up here for Express. Use Express JSON. Might need that later. Okay, so now we've got our query and the data associated to our query and what we might need. What else do we need? Well, all these plugins are effectively just servers with APIs, right? So you can do a get or a post. Those are the two methods that it currently supports for getting data from a server. We are going to do our app.get. I just like to call it data. I don't really like the slash. In this get data here, we are going to put all of the logic that's needed to return some JSON or some error. This is where we can start putting in our logic. And this isn't really about the logic for this API. This is just more so about the setup of our app. So I'm going to just fill that in. Okay, so welcome back. Now I've got this data all filled in. As you can see here, all we're doing is we are just checking to see if either the enemy of the day is null, meaning the app to start up, or we're on a new day. Then we can do some fun randomness to it. And then we will just go through and try to find something that is both good and has an English name while respecting our API tries. Then we'll go through and we will set our anime of the day object to what we are finding. And once we have it, we just do res.json and then our thing. And that will send a return back to the client, the JSON object of that anime that we found. As a reminder, it should look something like this, right? One of these anime. Or if we can't find one, we will return a 500, or if there's some error that goes on. Or if we already have an anime of the day and it's not a new day, then we'll just return what we chose to be the anime of the day, right? And then, of course, for any of our Express apps, we need to actually listen. So we'll listen on port 3000 and we will log once we start listening. And that's about it for the server side. So let's test to make sure that this is working. I like to use an application called Insomnia, but you can also use Postman if that's preferable to you, or curl, or your browser, however you want to do it, but I'm using Insomnia. Okay, so I'm in Insomnia. Let us go back to the terminal and start this with node index.js. We see our server is running on port 3000. And so now we're back in Insomnia. We have our GET request here. What we're going to do is HTTP /localhost port 3000 / data for that data endpoint. And there we have it. Our code ran and we have our anime. Let's see, what did we choose? I've never heard of this, but ABC Working Diary was our anime of the day. So then, now we have a way to get our data. How do we show this in a way that looks pretty for our users that will show up on their terminal? So this is where our views folder comes in. So if we go back to our project here, we have the views folder. The views folder will contain 4 files. They're all .liquid files. If you're unfamiliar with .liquid, because I was before we started this is just Shopify. If you are aware of that company, Shopify, they created their own little flavor of HTML, their own markup language called Liquid. For the most part, it's just HTML with a few quirks, which I will show. But you're going to need 4 files in here. So you're going to need a full screen liquid, so full liquid, .liquid. You are going to need a half horizontal .liquid. You're going to need a half vertical .liquid. And then finally, you are going to need a quadrant .liquid. So these are the 4 formats that a user can have your plugin be viewed in. And it is required that these exist They just have to display something. So for now, let's work on the full .liquid. This is probably the one that you were imagining in your head when you came up with this app. And we will go ahead and write that out. And then you will just put whatever you want to display in here. Again, the meat of this doesn't matter very much, so I'll walk you through my code. Okay, so if we go into my liquid code here, ignore the extension erroring out over here. I don't know what's going on with that. We can see that it, for the most part, just looks like regular HTML. It has everything that you'd expect. It has, flex boxes, how I'm using to create my layout. And then it uses these double curly braces to access your data. It just reads these tags straight from the JSON that we get back from our API. And that's pretty much it. I have a image here with some source. I have all these flex columns, these different texts with styles written into them. And it's all just one template file. There's no CSS styles file, so you just write your style into here if you want to change the font or whatever. Terminal itself does have some documentation on Liquid and how and what styles you can use. The only weird part about the whole thing is the for loops, how you do for loops and if statements. So you get these curly braces and you do % for genre in genres, %, and then you do your genre. And then I can do this little loop here that basically just says, hey, keep putting commas between the genres unless you're the last one, in which case don't put a comma there because that would be ugly. And I have another for loop here. If you want to do an if statement, you can do like that. You can do a % if the value you're looking for or some Boolean, write out what you want to happen in that if, and then you close it with a % end if. And that's really all you need to know for the basics of Liquid. Other than that, it is just regular old HTML. And then there is a little thing that you want at the bottom. So you'll notice if we go back to one of the terminal integrations, let's pick upcoming movies. You'll notice that there's this little bar down here. Basically every terminal plugin that you go to will have this little bar down here. It's a bit of a faux pas to skip that. So let's put in our little bar. So down here, we'll just give it a little div, the class of title bar. And in here, we're just going to give it, it's close, but not quite. Can't always trust the AI. Go to span, title, and we will say AnyList. Typically our title is usually either the name of the plugin or the data source, right? If there's a grander data source that this is coming from. And then in here, we will give it class instance. And in the instance, either the name of the application or the author name, but we do anime of the day. And this will give us that cute little title bar on the bottom that makes it look nice and official. So that's our full screen. And for the half horizontal and the half vertical, it's all basically the same thing. You're just dealing with less space, right? So if we go into, and so for the half horizontal and the half vertical and the quadrant, it's all the same thing, but you're just dealing with less space. Here's all the different mashup combinations that terminal can support. So you have your full screen, your half verticals, quadrants, half horizontals. And it's good to try to support as many of these as you can. You do need to have the files with something in there, even if it's just something that says this format isn't supported. You do need to have those 4 files, but try to fill out all of them if you can, just shaving away that data. It's all the same Liquid language, so I'm not going to go over that here. Now, if you want to test out your code here, there is an application called TRMNLP, and it's a terminal previewer, so you can view it in your browser. This is how I was developing terminal plugins before I even got my terminal, was via TRMNLP. So we'll show you how to get that installed. Yep, so here's TRMNLP. It kind of shows you how to start up your new application. So in the root folder, do gem install terminal preview. So once you install TRMNLP, you will need a config.toml. So TRMNLP is a Ruby application. It needs a config file to look at to know what the heck am I trying to do. So this is just for TRMNLP. It has nothing to do with like the actual final project of our plugin, but it does need some data. So we will give it a strategy of polling, and it is going to poll at this URL, that localhost 3000/data. Go ahead and save that. And then after that, we can do a TRMNLP serve. Now, it's going to look for that localhost. I shut down our server, so we're going to need to start that up. We cd into our server in another terminal, node index.js. We're running on that port. Now we can serve it up. And we got something listening. Let's go open that up. And here we are. Here's our preview. Now we don't have anything on the half horizontal, half vertical, or quadrant, but if we filled in those liquid files, those would show up here. If we want to refresh the data, we can click this poll button here and it will do a poll again. Because we are returning our quote unquote cached anime, we are just going to get that back. And we can see our nice little title bar down here. So now we have this preview, right? Well, okay, I'm done developing. What should I do to get this to other people? Well, first, make sure that this is in a publicly available GitHub. Someone from Terminal will want to look at that to integrate you into this big page here. But once you get your terminal, you should have access to the terminal dashboard. From here, you can go to plugins, private plugin. You can see another one's down here. And you can add your plugin. So go ahead and fill out this information. Here's our polling strategy. They have other ones too, but we're doing polling. In here, you're going to need to give some public URL. So I am hosting my Anime of the Day plugin via a service called Render. And what it will do is it will give me some publicly available URL. All I have to do is just grab that. Go into here, give it a /data. And it is a GET request. There's no headers, there's no body, there's no fields. So we're going to give it a name. And then we're going to hit save. Okay, so it's generated all this stuff for us. How many times do we want to refresh? And it now gives us the ability to edit our markup. So why don't we go ahead and do that? I'm going to put in the markup we wrote. We're just going to stick it in here. Gives us what it can. Going to hit Control S to save. I'm going to fill in the half horizontal and half vertical. And now we can go back to our plugin example. We're going to hit save. What we want to do is we're going to add in that plugin. There's not really a better way to do this right now. Except here's my plugin example here. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to hit edit. This looks really bad in the preview, but I assure you on the device, it cleans up a bit nicer. So this is our plugin. Now let's say we wanted to start pulling in some variables from people. That's something that I do in my Terminal Marvel comic trackers. I ask people to provide for me their API keys to Marvel API because you do need an account to hit that API, and it is limited just like the AnyList one. So I ask the user to provide their API keys. This isn't strange. A lot of plugins do this where they ask you to create an account and then give them some sort of token so they can log in for you. We also take in a list of comic series IDs that can also be found on Marvel's website. Every series has an ID. So what if we wanted to collect some data? For the sake of the AnyList one, we'll just use that. We'll give it some dummy puts for people to use, and you can see just how to do that if you wanted to collect some user input. Okay, so we're back in our project. We're going to create a file for ourselves. We're going to call it settings YAML, and we're going to give it a few bits of info. So we're going to give it this whole thing here. All this says is, hey, our strategy is polling. We have no screen padding, no dark mode, no static data. And we are going to change our polling verb to get. And this is from our Marvel comic tracker. So I'm just going to keep this here to show you how this is done. We can change it up later. So we're going to use just our Marvel comic tracker just for reference so you can get an idea of what's going on here, but you can fill this in with your own data. So we have our public address to the Marvel comic tracker. And here I wanted that public key, that private key, and the list of series. How do we get that? Well, we get that through custom fields. So our custom fields are going to contain 3 fields. We'll stick them in here. They contain our key name, what they should be recognized up in the URL, where they should go. What are they? So you can string in text body, all sorts of different things. There is documentation on this, which I will post in the description below. What do we want it to be called? So when someone opens up the form, what do we want it to be called? What kind of description do we want to give our user? And then some placeholder text. And we do the same thing down here with our string and some placeholder text. And the last thing that we need is just, what should the default name of this thing be? Sure, we'll do the Marvel comic tracker and a refresh interval that's set by default. This is in minutes. And that's our setting.yaml. Now, it doesn't do us a ton of good here. So if we wanted these things to show up on our little example plugin, we're going to take our custom fields, copy that over, and in the form field, we'll put them in there. We hit save, and if we go back in, ta-da, we got our public API key, our private API key, and our series ID, all with their little descriptions and placeholders. Cool, so we have the users being able to put in their information. How do I use that? Well, it's just a part of the polling URL, so we can access it like any other URL, where we can just say, hey, in this /data here, let's just save that information. So we can get a const, and I want our pub key, series, series string. And in here we can do things like, console.log, receive request with public key, and this public key is now a variable. These mapped straight to what we called them on the left side of the equal sign in our call. So all that data that they put in, we're just able to access just like any other URL variable and do whatever we want with it, whether that's authorization, customization, whatever. Once we've got that all figured out, people put in their keys in the forms here and whatever their IDs are. Once you're ready to go ahead and send this out, you're like, yeah, this looks good. I want to share this with people. All you have to do is click this publish as recipe button. That'll send it out to the developers of Terminal, where within a few days I found, because it's a small team, they will check out your plugin, make sure that it's actually valid, it works, it's not malware. they will go ahead and check it out, and then you can find yourself on the plugins page. I can search up my anime of the day. There it is, and people can go ahead and just click this install button and they get it for themselves. And that's it. That's all you need to develop a terminal plugin. It's not that hard. It is just a little confusing when you're reading the docs, but really all it is just an API and some liquid markup, and you're done. So yeah, let me know in the comments what you plan on building for your terminal. I'd be really interested to find out what you're working on, and I hope to see your plugins hit the plugin page soon. See ya.